Having start our building and finance. Good evening. We are starting our building and finance meeting. It is a hybrid meeting. We have people on Zoom, on the phones, and in person. Do we have anyone on the phone? If you are on the phone, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, Brian Sullivan's here.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Do we have anyone else along with Brian?
Eric and John.
Yeah, Eric Olson here, principal at Stag.
Okay, great.
Hey, everybody, it's Jen. I'm on Zoom.
Hi, Jen. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
This is Fred Houseman. I'm assuming I'm on Zoom, but you guys know that, right?
There we go.
Yeah, Fred's on there. You got him?
Yes.
And we're just going to wait like a minute or two here, just as people are joining us on Zoom.
All right.
It looks like we have a couple people still joining us.
Tara's part of it, even though she's here.
On top, we'll go back up.
Who's good? Me, Fred, Jen.
Okay.
Well, we thank you for joining us if you're joining us from home. And we call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Do we have any public comments? Okay, no public comments, so we will move on to our June building and finance minutes. Those minutes were approved. Those are just a nice reminder of where we were at our last meeting. And we can move on to our buildings report with Dave Keating. And we'll start with our major projects and equipment plan. I know that you've been very, very busy over the summer. It was a large construction summer for our district and all three buildings. So, Dave, if you can share where things are at and all that has happened, I appreciate that.
Sure can. Good evening, everybody. Start off at the top with the replacement of the field turf at the three high schools. All three schools are done. They're just now waiting on the training on the maintenance of the turf, which we already know how to do, but then the added stuff we get from the field turf, and then we're ready to close that project out. The running tracks are just about finished. They're going to start striping each of the tracks starting on the 24th through that week, so they should have all the tracks striped with the lanes next week. The gym windows at Sandburg are all complete. That was done a month ago. Let's see, varsity baseball renovations, that hasn't started yet. We're still waiting on the permits to start. They should be getting those any day now, though. So then we'll start construction on the varsity baseball. The softball dugouts and press boxes at Sandburg and Stag. They're all constructed. There's still finishing touches on some of the doors. They're waiting on back orders, but the lion's share of all that has been completed. The LED retrofit, they're finished up installation this week, and programming is ongoing, so it might take a few more weeks to get all the programming, the bells and whistles attached to it to be done, but all the lights are in that are supposed to be. The roofs, should be finishing up Sandburg's roof this week. They have to do some punch list items and anti-slip guard that goes on the roof, because it's a rubber roof. They have to go back and do that at the three schools, but all the coding has been completed after this week.
Once you were running on the roof anyway.
Right, we're running on the roof. Our protection up there.
No kidding.
Solar panels phase. We just had another meeting on that this week. But that is still ongoing. We're going to have another meeting, and then hopefully soon get out to bid. I think was it October, John?
October, I think, yeah.
So I had the date, but sorry.
And then will that work be done in 2021 then?
Depending on weather.
They could possibly start right away. Some of the work they start.
Okay.
That could start right away. But ordering some of those, the panels and the chargers for all that stuff could take some time, so it's nicer to get it in sooner than later. The pool filter at Stag, that is still ongoing. That's the pool, they're waiting on the filter system now, or the chemical system's got the facility installed. Most of the filter work is done, and they're gonna run the power for it, hopefully this week, and have it up and running soon. I don't have an exact date on when they're gonna start it, but we have to get the IDPH to come out and inspect the pool still, so that's still trying to schedule them to come out too, so. Security camera, they are all completed. They're still finishing up with some of the mapping on our computer site, so, but all of the install and the cameras are all up and working. We just need to finish up on also bells and whistles that we get with the new program. It's very nice. I've seen some of the maps already. You can click on a section of the building, pick a camera, and bring it right up. You don't have to scroll through everything. It's really nice. The iWave Air Purifiers, the installation of that will start next week. According to my supplier, we should be getting the rest of them in this week, most of them, and then we'll start install starting Monday.
And we're installing those ourselves.
And the fixed drainage and repaver on the varsity baseball field is a project that is, we've noticed the asphalt's very bad on the back of Andrews varsity baseball field. Part of that has to do with the drainage issue, so currently our architects are working on how to draw that out so we can get that moving towards getting a MWRD permit and get pushing forward, hopefully get some of that installed as soon as we can. That's it for the current. We still have all the next year projects, if anybody has any questions on that. Nothing of that is official yet.
Honest team, Dave.
He's still here too.
Dave and his team, been doing a great job. I meet with them every Thursday morning, and, actually the other guy comes sometimes too. And John and I meet with them and we get updates, and, there's a lot of work. That's what the weather issues, that is, stuff like that. And the IDPH is busy with other things too right now, trying to get them out for permits. It's been difficult. But I was, last week I went by the building, the week before, and then last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I went to all the buildings, inside and out, and, they look great. I mean, inside the buildings, again, the floor shine, he's got all the hand sanitizers and the kiosks, and, they're putting we're letting I'm pointing Bob like he's a building, but we're letting the building determine where their one-way signs are going, and there's stuff like that, and they will help, but it's really, buildings have a better idea in front of the guidance, in front of these out, and how they want to do it. But, they would help, but I mean, it's really building specific, and they're being put down. So, but I mean, kudos, Dave. Good job.
They work on 8 days in May, the roofers. That's how many days they were able to work with the weather in May. So that's why they were kind of pushed back a little bit. They had a rough start to the project.
Dave's also been ordering all our PPE and dividers and plexiglass and all the stuff. He centralized all that purchasing, which, saves money, obviously, shopping best price and getting, one common order in, but, and not duplicating and getting, a ton of, if everybody orders it and we order it, then we got twice as much as we thought we were getting. So it's been a new assignment that not normally falls on that position, but he's been doing a great job. 20 emails a day, someone selling something. I mean, just Hanes has these now. Hanes used to be something else, T-shirts or whatever. And, but I mean, I sometimes say to Dave all the time, like, for your file, because it's pretty overwhelming. But good job, Dave. Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Anything else for the maintenance and cleaning?
Yeah, I can get you some of the cleaning things. We started more of a step-by-step cleaning process now that everyone's back in school, well, teachers at least now, and then we get kids that'll change a little bit with days that we're missing. We'll be able to do more things on Wednesdays when there's nobody there and things like that. But daily they're going to be going through and doing all the high touch point areas, light switches, counter rooms, cafeterias, door handles. They're going to be frequently, they'll be cleaning those daily. General cleaning and disinfections after school in the evening. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. That's a good there's an increased focus on disinfecting with the hospital-grade cleaning supplies and trash removal, under student desk, tables, flat surfaces, whiteboards, things like that. That all gets done in second shift when there's nobody around. They can use the chemicals more where no one's going to get affected by it. High traffic areas, things like that. And then they're going to be doing evenings, Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The different kinds of disinfectant cleaning with the electrostatic sprayers, and they'll be used in most of every classroom. I'll try to go into. They can do a lot with these sprayers. We ordered 2 new ones, so each school has 3 of them now. So we'll be able to cover more ground.
What do they do, like an hour, like 50,000 square feet an hour or something like that?
It's a hustle in the end, it's 50,000 square feet compared to the older ones, which was 12,000 square feet. So that's the difference between those actual sprayers. So the new electrostatic ones are really nice. That way they can get in the gyms, the cafeteria, the commons, the locker rooms. If we have some of the locker rooms open, fitness centers, things like that are being used by the sports for camps and whatnot now. But once the school opens up, we'll have more details then. And they do some project cleaning on Wednesdays too. The carpets by the doors and those technical areas. They kind of do almost that stuff on Wednesdays. So that's the different questions.
Were there any issues obtaining the cleaning supplies?
The sprayers are harder to get. There's certain things that the cleaning solutions haven't been an issue. It's been more of the Purell and the wipes and things like that, which ABM never really was a big supplier for that. We had a few areas in school we kept them in, like the commons, gyms, things like that, but we never had them throughout the school like we do now. So that was stuff that we had to order. They couldn't get it, and they have to order through Purell, certain companies that they're contracted out to. So, but as far as like soaps and disinfecting, as of right now, we haven't heard any our supplier for not any problem getting anything.
Does anybody have any questions for Dave regarding either the projects or the cleaning?
I just say it's a heroic actions in difficult times at best. Great job.
I do have a question which probably is for John, but it's based on the extra cleaning. When we did, in the contract, okay, we've got, the cap of what they can charge us for the year. Right. But now, because of the fact that we're adding all this extra cleaning, which really wasn't kind of considered when we did the contract, are they coming back to us at all saying they have not made some adjustments, or?
Not yet currently. There are certain areas of school that aren't a lot of the time was spent on after-school activities and events, and they got a lot set up like that. So we've got more time to do the cleaning now because those things aren't going on. So if school ramps up to where it was, then maybe, but I haven't heard anything like that yet.
They've adjusted some shifts and things like that, but yeah, I think if we run into where we're spending more money on supplies because there's just more chemical being used or more stuff being used, we have a little bit of ability to put off purchase of equipment and other things that would fall under the cap, and so we can, shift things around and make it work, but our intent is to stay within that cap. That's the plan.
Oh, I know. So other years we've had maps, so we shift things around to make it work for us when they pop up. So, but as of right now, no, he hasn't brought up anything to me about extra supplies.
That's good news. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Then we will go ahead and we'll move on to finance.
Yeah, so the treasurer's report is, I don't know what page that is, but let's see. Treasurer's report 10, page 10 or 11 of your packet. Yeah, so taxes have started to come in. We started the month of July with $100,802,366. We had revenues for the month totaling $22,560,690.58. Expenditures of $12,721,662.58, leaving a ending fund balance
at the end of July of $110,394.82. And you'll see when I get into the next part here that property taxes, there were extended grace periods and things being offered by the county that some people are taking advantage of. So we're seeing a significant, about a 20% drop in property tax revenues, but I think, again, it's a timing issue with their, people taking advantage of a extended grace period and the ability to do that without penalties. So they're hanging on to their money a little longer, which is fine as long as it comes through in the end. That's our most significant revenue source. So moving into the actual fiscal year-to-date budget versus actual comparison, you can see again, if you look, I'll just use the education fund at the top there as it's the accounts that begin with 10, so it's 10R, revenues there, taxes, local. You'll see we've got $17,310,470 coming in fiscal year to date. And if you go to the second from the last column, last year we had received $21,443,482. So significant drop there. We don't have, you can see that our budget is not loaded in the system yet, so the first column's not populated, which then leads to us not having a percentage in the fiscal year to date percent column there either. But again, this is the old format being used because our Forecast 5 system doesn't have the budget in there. It won't be in there until September, at which time then we'll switch back to the other format, to a little bit more graphics and things to look at. So you can see on the expenditure side, just again looking at the ed fund as an example, salaries, we did have some significant turnover in staff. We had, what was it, Dr. About 30 employees overall that, yeah, like 37 new employees, so we've had quite a bit of turnover. That's,
we had close to, I think it was 28, 30 retirees. And then some people left during, during the summer, some chose to resign or retire over the summer as well.
yeah. So while salaries are increasing, you'll see that we're actually less spending year to date right now, and that's in large part due to the fact that we had a number of retirees. Insurance, the next line, benefits, again, is less than this time a year before, and purchase services less than it was, or no, a little bit more than it was a year before. So, or no, considerably less. I'm sorry, almost $100,000 less than it was a year before. So, some of that has to do with transportation. We haven't had any buildings. This is ed fund, but you'll see this repeat throughout these funds. And when we're not physically present, we're not doing the same thing, so we're not incurring all the same expenses. So yeah, I mean, again, you'll see federal funds. I didn't get a chance to look at this closely, and I don't know if Tara has an answer for us, but in the education, or in the special education line item, federal funds, we had $691,098, where last year this time we had $80,000, and I know she's been working closely with Charles Obando and instructional services.
When the reports were submitted, the state actually paid out the expenditure reports like very timely.
Okay.
They put them in right away in July. So both the ed fund and the special ed, you can see we've got an increase, but that was again for last year. This is July, so this is from fiscal year 20's receipts coming in. Whereas normally we weren't getting them till August. Okay. So we received them in July. It's a timing.
So yeah, I think as you go down, you'll see a lot of this stuff kind of repeat, you know, in the revenues, for operations and maintenance. Again, considerably less being received there for local taxes. Same thing in our debt service and our transportation fund and so forth. So does anyone have any questions on the fiscal year-to-date budget versus actual compare?
Hey, John, this is Brian Sullivan.
Yeah.
One quick question on the supplies. I noticed that across the funds that seems to be significantly over the prior year. Is that a reflection of timing, would you estimate, or are we making additional expenditures for just COVID?
Yeah, I think what's that? Yeah, in O&M that, you know, we're about double where we were last year at this time. And I think a lot of that is in response to that. We do, however, have about, I think it's $145,000 budgeted for PPE, for instance, through the CARES grant. That'll be offsetting that additional spending. So on the revenue side, we will see the CARES grant, you know, after these expenditures are made, we'll apply for the money, and then we'll see that coming in and the federal grant side up above. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So some of this is front-end spending. That's not like run rate that we're seeing in July.
Right. No, it's nothing was, you know, we didn't like hold any bills or put off paying for anything, if that's what you mean. These are new expenditures, and you know, we're aware, you know, there's some additional spending going on for things that we don't normally buy. But going into the investments, Tara and I were looking at, you know, what we're getting in an investment return now, and it's dismal, as you can imagine. We're probably looking at, for the year, the way things are going, probably losing about $750,000 in revenue on a return on investments. We're at a weighted average portfolio yield of 0.719, which sounds terrible, but it's actually really good. I think if you look at our new investments, we're at, you know, 0.15. You know, it's just almost nothing.
The 10-year treasuries are about 0.06 or something like that. So. Yeah,
it's just really tough to make money on your money right now. And you will notice in a second section here of that section that you'll see our $22.9 million. That's our bonds. They're in a separate portfolio. We're getting about 0.375 on those. They're invested out about 278 days right now. So we're getting a little bit better yield on those than you know, extending that out a little ways. And then of course the managed portfolio, you know, since inception, what was it, July of 18, so we're 20, yeah, we've been in there a couple of years. We've got 10% return, so net of fees. So that's really done well for us. And then yeah, there's some money in Fifth Third. You'll see that in there as well. So any questions on any of that?
Hi, John. This is Ogo. Question on the revenue. So for the property tax revenue stream, are you anticipating that there's a potential that some of them may not actually end up being received, and the projection, could it potentially go down?
Yeah, it could potentially go down. We never collect 100% of our tax revenues. In this year, yeah, there's a good chance that proceeds will be down. It's tough to get out of paying your property taxes. What they do is seize your property, liquidate it, and give us the money. So typically, the loss is not as great as it might be anticipated. Most people either hang on to that property and bite the bullet and pay their taxes, or they sell it, or it gets seized, and sold. So, things get really, really bad. I could see that becoming a big problem, but right now, I think our projections are based on about a 3% loss, which 2.5% loss. So we'll reevaluate that. I'm in communication with other business officials, and we're talking to their county clerk and other people about what's going on, and we'll have a little better idea as we come up on our final budget. If 2.5 is realistic, or if people are using 3.5 or 4, but in any case, we'll, before the final budget, we will refine those numbers.
And the 2.5 that we were using, did we just come up with that, or that was
historically, it's been at about 1.9 to 2, so we bumped it up just a little, only,
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was wondering, pre-COVID, what has been the rate? So it was increased from the pre-COVID rates of, okay, perfect, got it, thank you.
We've gotten as much as 99%. We've gotten 98-point-something%. Yeah, we're going to be more like 97.5% in this projection. But again, we'll reevaluate that when we get a little closer. And if we have to, take another 0.5% there or something, we will.
But John, in theory, eventually over time, we do collect it because of just the nature of how real estate taxes are paid, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there could be an increase in PTABs, protests, and that's where we're truly losing dollars because we're paying that money back to taxpayers that's already been collected and received by the school district. If a property gets reassessed, you've got a lot of vacant restaurants and things right now.
Yep.
If those all go down in value, we all pick up the slack and pay a little bit more. That's how that works. So yeah, over time, what really affects us is when we don't adjust the value of property timely and people protest their taxes and get refunds. That's when we lose real dollars. So I'd imagine there's a fair amount of that going on this year. There always is, but probably more so. I know people are getting things in the mail from attorneys on, they'll take 30% if you protest let them protest your taxes for them, stuff like that. So that's the way it goes, and it's hard to predict, but we will do the best we can.
Yeah, John, and this is Fred again. Sorry, but I have one more question. Comparing, the fiscal year ended on June 30th, how did we do year to date as compared to budget?
We don't have anything in this report.
No, because we're still pending our audit. The audit is coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, to be unaudited figures, we will.
I'm still making journal.
Yeah, there's journal entries going on, but we will have that comparison. We fared well. I mean, we ended the year within budget, and
We typically get that report in September.
we will. Yeah, we'll okay. When our audit's done, it'll be a full AFR, and it'll show. It actually shows in the AFR the comparison of budget to actual, so you can see it by line. Yes. Yep.
You're not going to be able to not have the exciting auditor's report. Not have that. I don't know. Oh, God, yes, let's have them.
As a note, in the back of the auditor's report, the very last 2 pages does a 10-year extension on our property taxes, and it tells you how much is been collected of all those prior years. And if you look from year to year, you can see the change, because we do continually collect more taxes for prior years. So you can see where the current year, we may be at like at 98.6, but then look at your prior years and we're hitting 100 and 101%. I don't know how we hit that, but.
Well, it's because of the collection of back taxes that are finally being
So you'll be able
paid.
to see that in the audit report in the back couple pages. Just,
we typically get it, maybe a few months later, but we do get it.
yeah, we get it, yes. It's usually presented like, it's due October 15th, so.
Any other questions? These are good questions. Then, do you want to start on the tentative budget?
Sure. The tentative budget is.
The moving target.
Yeah, this has been a challenging one, I'll tell you. We've got a lot going on. It seemed like as we go through this budget process, nearly every fund and nearly both on the revenue and expenditure side seem to be affected by COVID. You can imagine everything from food service, transportation, technology, instructional services, with the professional development and outsourced services that are, potentially required here as we return to school. A lot of uncertainty, but in any case, we have put together a tentative budget. It is balanced, I believe, right? Yes, it's balanced. We do have a deficit in O&M currently reflected, but some adjustments could be made because we've got a surplus in transportation. We have a small surplus in the Ed Fund, surplus in IMRF, Social Security. And the deficits shown, you can see, can our participants on the phone see this?
Yeah, we can see it. I can.
Yeah, you can see that, all right? Okay, so under column H, capital projects, of course, again, we bring the money in. We extended the debt certificates, we brought the money in, and now the spending occurs. So the revenues came in already, the balance is in our bank account, and now we're spending it down. So you're going to see red figures there, for the next couple, hopefully 2 to 3 years as we spend that money down. And the same thing with debt service there, I guess. You could potentially see a negative like that. Dependent upon, we do have we reflected a transfer.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, those are not a concern. The O&M, we don't want to reduce O&M. I think we were at a good fund balance, so we're probably going to make some adjustments there to to bring that to at least a zero. Not show a deficit there, not reflect a deficit. On the revenue side, again, gate receipts, a la carte meal sales, admissions to plays, proceeds from parents paying for locks, science goggles, gym uniforms. All these things are, again, up in the air and kind of a lot of uncertainty. And while they sound like, $6 lock doesn't sound like a lot, we sell one to 7,000 students along with a gym suit for, another, $8, $10 or whatever those cost. And it adds up, believe it or not. All these line items add up and, impact the budget. So we're doing the best we can, and we have considered I believe we have in this budget some contingency line items, and I put that in the memo. And we've not used this before. I mean, people talk about having a contingency. That's not where you pad accounts, put $100,000 in here and you'll transfer it around when you need it or something like that. Contingency is an actual line item in the budget that would require board approval and an explanation when we ask for that approval to move it out of that account and into the account we're going to spend it from. It's not been done here, to my knowledge, ever. So we're seriously, I think we've already got built in a few of those line items. We may build a few more of those in with all this uncertainty. It's gonna look a lot better to the auditor that we have $200,000 left in contingency than $200,000 left in, O&M, in a line item in O&M or something. So instead of just putting wild guesses out there, we'll put what we know and hopefully put some contingency and use it sparingly and hopefully not have to use as much of it as we budgeted. So that's kind of what that looks like. So we can dig into this some more as time goes on, but when we get closer to September here, if anyone has any questions or if anything, if anyone wants to see any more detail, this will be posted in its entirety. I think it's about 35 pages. It'll be on our website a couple of days from now, the 19th, I think it is. 19th? And so that'll be on our website. We can also give you a hard copy or email it to you. Just shoot myself or Chris Ganta or Tara Wagner an email. We can send you the full document. And if you have any questions regarding specific line items or sections, we'll do our best to answer those questions.
There will be the hearing on
September, yeah.
August, we'll set the hearing.
Well, we've already set the hearing. Yeah, because it has to be, so we have to publish and have this tentative done 30 days before the hearing. So we set the hearing date actually in May or June. Yeah, June. You're right. Yeah, we have to do that because we don't have the July meeting, so we do it early.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim. I had a quick question. When you say that we may be employing this contingency lines for the first time in our budget, is there an accepted calculation for how that money gets put in that line item?
I don't know that it's a calculation. I think it's, we're gonna be talking about things we may or may not need to buy, right?
But you're pulling that money from some place, right? Is there any?
Well, it'll be calculated into these totals that you see. They're in here. The ones that I've done are in here. So if it's saying, we have $100,000 at the end of the year in the ed fund, that includes a, $25,000 contingency or whatever. I don't have it at my fingertips here, but 50?
Yeah, we got 50.
Okay, so there you go. Provision for contingency. We have about $75,000 built in right now, and that's for specific things. And again, I don't have that at my fingertips what those exact items are that we're allowing a contingency for, but in the budget in Skyward, we can actually list, behind that 50,000, we can list 20,000 for, additional PPE, 15,000 for, plexiglass or what, or whatever, temperature monitor or, additional ionizers or, whatever.
So the level of detail down to what the actual item, not just percentage, is how you guys are doing it.
Yes, not a percentage of the total, that could be done that way, but I think.
Way more detailed than.
Yeah, we'd approach it as, hey, Dave comes, you guys come to us sometimes and say, we don't know if we're gonna need this, but it costs $100,000, so we better, have a plan for covering this, and we aren't gonna know whether we need it until we need it, and so.
Part of that is going on to the state right now with the return to the school plans that are, as you're watching the news, that a lot of schools are from K through college, university, are making changes as we speak. If there is ever a return to school, there's going to have to be, even though we have a lot of PPE and everything prepared, there may be other things that they're going to say in phase 5, you need blank. Because last week alone, we got 2 IDPH new guidelines, one on Wednesday, one on Friday. And there actually, ISB gave one out today, didn't tell us. Someone found it on their website, and we all went looking for it. It was hidden on the ISB webpage. A new guidelines that ISB came out with today. So it's important to have that, otherwise you're just not, they're gonna tell Dave, don't do something, you know, we need that money.
So John, when you, I can't even imagine this budget. When you put this budget together, were you putting it together under the assumption of a normal school year, and these are the contracts we have in place, and if everything were to go this way, and then you move the money to contingency, saying, okay, well, maybe I don't need it here, so I'm gonna make it a contingent liability, assuming that if something happens, I pull it out?
Yeah. No, we've tried to account for things we know are either additional expenses. All of the CARES grant money is in here, and we have a budget, a separate budget filed with the state. So we just plop that in there, you know, and then things like that. So that is $1 million, you know, or $895,000 or whatever. So it's certainly not budgeted as a normal year. There
are certain things, I think, to your point, like transportation, and we're gonna talk about that in a few minutes. The transportation issue that is in question. Food service is in question. The amount of food service that typically take place with the kids if they're in session. There are, like John said, there are not much money, but there are some gate receipts that certain things that happen. So a lot of that stuff have to be put on hold because they're not 100% sure if that is actually going to be revenue, which puts a damper on something.
I mean, even if we have sports in the spring, you know, they take the fall sports, put them in the spring, is it going to be an abbreviated thing? Are they going to allow spectators? Are they going to, there's just so many questions. So.
Football, February is going to be different.
Yeah.
There won't be that many people either way. Right.
So any immediate questions on the budget? Anything that anybody has on that?
And that will be emailed to all the board members, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Prior to that'll be in their packet for the board meeting, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be in there, yes. So the numbers may change from what we're presenting here, because again, we're still fine tuning and,
So we'll try before you get it to get rid of that negative on the O&M. We'll try to adjust some things there and get that to zero anyway. And yeah, the other thing in here is that you see a line there, 10, that says on behalf payments. That's really an in and out, which is representative. It's a GASB requirement, and it's footnoted there, and I don't think we have
the on behalf is for your OPEB, for your pension benefit obligations, and so that's a figure that's an actuarial value that we receive from the auditor.
Yeah, so the one that's in there is an estimate. It really it's a wash. It's in and out, and it's more for the audit than it is for budgeting. Don't be alarmed by that additional $45 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Dr. Gay, did you want to address anything on the state financing issues?
There's really not much on financing. You know, we're still there's a lot of basically everything is focused on the reopening of schools this week, next week. Our incoming freshmen and transfer students are Thursday, Friday, and then the rest of the students on Monday virtually. Most of the conversations I have, you know, pretty much 3 times a week with the state, through ISB, through the ISC, and through the high school organization. Actually, we're on the phone with Jesse Ruiz today, the deputy governor, trying to get, you know, ideas of what's happening financially as well as statewide plans. I mean, if you guys are aware as much as I am aware, what happened in St. Clair County today and Clay County, and there's lawsuits going on still. In our region, which is Illinois, ISC South Cook region, there's 65 districts right now. I think we're up to 52 or 55, I think, as of today, that are remote. There's a few hybrid, but there's every day this week there's an emergency board meeting happening every day this week from surrounding districts. So I think that number will go up. So that's, I mean, there's not, I can't say about finances. We've heard nothing from the General Assembly. Their speaker right now does not really want to call the General Assembly into session. So there's a lot of unknowns in the veto session. They said it's going to be very, very simple. Not much there. And again, they don't want, they can't call themselves in session. So.
Well, thank you.
Okay, more.
The next item on our agenda would be insurance. There is nothing there to report at this time, but I had a question, so I just wanted to pose it at this point. Is there any changes in our liability insurance when we don't have as many people on the premises? Would there be like any discount to our insurance costs because
we did get a reduction for grounding our bus, that we weren't busing kids.
Okay.
Back, in March, April, May. As far as the liability for not having students on site, I have not heard anyone chattering about that. I'm sure these insurance companies have lots of claims besides, that they'd love to have our money to offset, but I can certainly ask our carrier, hey, if we're only going to have a quarter of the kids in this building, clearly.
Like our workman's comp kids, our staff aren't getting hurt by breaking up fights when there's not as many students on the premise, or parking lot issues, or there's just less occurrences.
Or if we are remote Wednesday, and I don't know if staff are in or out, but if they're out, then that's four-fifths of the liability, right?
So if there was any reduction that we would be seeing.
Yeah, good question.
That's a great question. I haven't heard anybody bring that up. That's it.
Everybody's still trying to figure out what they're gonna do.
Right, yeah, but that's a great question. I can even bring it up.
I mean, the auto insurance carriers were giving breaks and nobody's driving, so.
Our exposure is less.
Absolutely.
Good question. Again, no chatter yet.
Then we'll move on to transportation. Speaking of transportation.
Yep, transportation. So I had hoped to have more to share tonight than I do. I've asked all three of our carriers to provide addendums, because what they're wanting to do is, because they're experiencing fixed costs just as they were in March, April, and May, as you can imagine. The price is quoted, if they're transporting kids, let's say, 100 of 177 days, student attendance days. The prices that they quoted in our original bid just don't fit with their business plan, So as a result, they're asking, can you pay us again like you did back in March, April, May? And I've been working with the attorney to figure out, can we just figure out a way to modify the agreement, the whole agreement, and the amount paid per run when and if we eventually start transporting kids. Problem with that is we don't know how many days that is, or when it'll start and when it'll end again and start up again, and problems like that. So that's what we've been trying to navigate. There's also additional cleaning. I've had one bus company say they'd like to have the latitude to charge us as much as 10% of our monthly bill just for additional cleaning. Another company was much more reasonable gave me line item, you know, this is the labor involved, these are the chemical costs. They gave me very detailed, specific, and so I'm using the specifics, and I've shared the chemical and some of that stuff with our people to review, and I'm using that kind of against the other carriers, like, hey, you know, this looks reasonable, and this looks like somebody's actually done some work to figure out how much this is going to cost. So let's you know, be reasonable, and let's come up with, you know, what is this going to be, you know, what is it going to cost. So there's, you know, obviously we don't want our carriers to go bankrupt in the middle of the school year, because they're not, you know, not being paid enough. But at the same time, we need to be fair and responsible with taxpayer dollars. And one of the things that we got early on was some estimate, you know, when we were talking about this back in March, April, May, we were looking at what percentage is labor, you know, what percentage of these companies' bill is for bus drivers who are all still on unemployment, how much of it is for fixed costs related to, you know, the shop, the bus fleet, lease payments for their facilities, liability insurance, which they still incur even though they're not rolling. They do have still bills for insurance. You know, the fleet needs to be protected if somebody breaks into their yard and slashes all the tires or starts them on fire or something. So there are costs that they're incurring, and as I'm sympathetic to them, but at the same time we gotta, this has to be done very scientifically, and so I'm working through that along with some other contracted service agreements, including athletic trainers, which we'll be getting to, and now I think some nursing services potentially, and some other things. So we're, you know, again, I've gotten a proposal back from 2 of the companies. I'm still working through them, and they're in different formats, and they want to do it differently, and I would like it all to kind of look the same. So it's going to take probably a week to sort through all of this and get it hammered out so that we can just get a bill. I think it's going to be a lot cleaner when we do our transportation claim, if they're billing us for services and not saying, you know, here's our fixed cost for times when we weren't serving you, and here's a bill for you know, cleaning our buses, and here's a bill for the actual transportation. And then, you know, that becomes questionable as to whether or not we had a contract in place to pay those things, and whether or not they're claimable under the transportation claim form with the state. So I'd like to see a rate being charged that includes those costs, as the rate normally includes those costs. So we'll work toward that end.
The transportation, I should know, I can't remember. The reimbursement is still happening from the state.
Yes.
And what percentage?
Well, it ends up being approximately 65%. It used to be 80%. We submit our costs, we get 80%. Now it's more like 80% of 80%, which comes out to about 60-some%. So, and is that going to change? I don't know. I mean,
I like the idea of when you're talking about charges per run, basically, because if we're planning on August, September 21st, what if September 21st comes around and we're not?
right.
I'm saying there's a possibility, let the world know, there's a possibility, you know, if the 21st doesn't work out, right? You know, I mean, I understand it.
Is there like a compromise there? I think it's important that we bust in place. I know other districts are talking about that. But if they want the contract price we want to do per run, is there anything we can build into if we kind of, I don't want to use the word subsidize, but we kind of are, you know, that they pay us back over, you know, X amount of time to help them out, and maybe they have to float like a performance bond for that, you know, or something like that.
You know, I mean, the fact of the matter is they're incurring real costs, you know, and it'd be like, you know, if you made widgets and you said, you know, I'm going to make a half a penny on all these widgets, and I'll, you know, somehow, you know, if the widget's costing more than what people are paying for it, then they're gonna go bankrupt. I mean, that's the bottom line, you know, so we have to evaluate and really determine whether or not.
I get it, but I think at the end of the day, there's gonna be a lot of school districts out there that say, we're not gonna pay for services we're not getting. You know, that's gotta be the case, in a lot of places, they can't. You know, they're already deficit spending, they're there.
It's not a matter of, it's a matter of paying for the cost of the services being given. And if that, I mean, let's just use an extreme example. Let's say they only deliver our kids to our schools 100 days out of the year. They still have a bus fleet. They still have, you know, a bus garage and a dispatching center. And all of these things are still there and costing money. So now the cost to deliver a kid per day has gone up considerably because we're only doing it 100 days a year instead of 177 days a year. So it's, you know, that, I mean, but do I know, you know, conclusively what that figure is? I don't, and I don't know how many days we're gonna deliver them. So, you know, it's, that's the conundrum we're in, and it's not an easy thing to navigate, but.
We're still getting reimbursed.
And we're still getting, you know, we're still getting, yeah, 60-some% of it reimbursed, from the state, but.
I think one of the issues is you're trying to ensure that bus company will be viable when you need them. Because if they fold, and all the other districts have buses, you can't transport your kids, you're in a conundrum.
Well, there were districts, and I'm not gonna use any names, I don't even know them, I don't think, but, that chose back in March, April, May not to. That's what I was thinking, I mean. You know, not to pay. Guess what? They're not those bus companies' priority anymore. Right. We, you know, those of us who participated and tried to, you know, work with them are the ones that they're serving. So.
We kind of pulled the other districts that use the same.
Yeah, oh yeah, we were.
To see what everyone else was doing to make sure we weren't footing the whole bill, that we all were investing in keeping them viable.
Right.
So we get those services. So that was one of the things we kind of checked to see where everyone's at, because.
Right. I think we did a good job. You know, we get to one of these scenarios that is like a worst case, or like, not worse, but like a bad case, you know, scenario. Things can change pretty quickly, and if there's a way we can kind of ensure that we're at least getting what we paid for, that would be a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Is there a way that they can give us their normal cost per run? And bear with me a second on this. So let's just say that it's $100. Okay.
Right.
And we're getting reimbursed 65%. So does it make sense to say, okay, for the time that we're not using you, we will give you 65% of the normal per run cost, because for us that's a break even, keeps them liquid, and then when we are making the runs, then we'll pay you your normal run cost plus whatever you add on.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're doing now is basically for this year only is we do an addendum to the contract to say rather than paying you this fee, this is how we're going to calculate how much we would pay you. So what we're basically doing then is assuming we're getting the 65% from the government. Yeah, the governor. He can afford it. But anyway, if we were getting 65% from the state, then we're not paying anything on that money, and we're keeping them afloat, and then we would pay them the normal cost on the runs that actually happen. Just a thought to throw out there. I'm trying to do calculations.
Yeah, I'm not playing on my phone. I was just working something out. But yeah, no, that's a good idea. And I'm starting to think about kind of like a sliding scale.
Yeah.
You know, like look, here's what we'll, you know, if we're transporting 140 days, or 130 days, or 120 days, or 110 days, or, these are the rates that would apply. And we would be at a wash or break even in any of these scenarios. While the cost would go up, it wouldn't go up proportionately, it'd go up, like you say, a fraction of the.
So nothing's coming out of our pocket for next Monday when the kids aren't being bused in, but they're still getting money for Monday.
Right. Right, and remember, our agreement with our carriers was 35%. That was our, you know, I mean, we were very, very,
Yeah, I remember.
we were being very frugal
Yeah.
in picking that percentage because most others were at a much higher percentage. But, so yeah, I think we can work something there. That's, thanks for helping.
Once in a while.
All right.
When we were looking at it in the spring and trying to break it down a little bit, did we get an idea of what the percentage is in their salaries?
Yes, I got a breakdown. Yeah, I could share some of that with you. I can't give you you know, I kind of was like, I'm not going to share, you know, a specific company's proprietary, you know, it says confidential all over and stuff, but I could just generally share percentages.
That's the item that they're not paying right now is, they're paying about.
They're not paying their drivers, yeah.
But they're not paying their staff. So if that cost is 35, then that aligns into the 65%. But if their salaries are 45%,
yep,
then maybe we need to do 55%. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So we'll continue down the agenda as we move.
Great discussion.
Anybody else have any questions that are on the line or on Zoom? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not forgetting about you. We're going to move on to the hazardous route resolution. This happens every single year. We submit this to the state to let them know areas that we feel are dangerous for students to travel by. So that is the listing we have. Was there any changes to that from prior years? It didn't look like it.
There are not, nope.
Then we'll go ahead and move on to the athletic trainers contract.
Yeah, so I mentioned that we've been working with our athletic trainer contract companies. We have two of them, Athletico and ATI, and I was able to finalize the agreement with Athletico. We're still kind of back and forth with ATI, and I did share with them that Athletico was able to reach agreement with us with the terms that we need, and if they can't do it, that, you know, we would consider moving services over to Athletico. So I talked to Athletico today. They're willing to bring that to their board and get that done for us. They just want a firm commitment before they bring it. Of course, I want a firm commitment that they can provide the services before I tell the other company we don't want them. So we're kind of at that point, but I'm looking one more time at what was submitted by ATI, but they were not meeting the same level of liability insurance coverage. They wanted to use a platform for our concussion protocol that would store student records, and there was no language in there protecting the district. There's a lot of stuff, just little minutia in there that they just aren't willing to. All right. So that's where we're at with those. So we will be bringing this one and hopefully another contract. This one is for two of our schools. The other one will be for the last school, and hopefully have that by the board meeting. That's the plan. So we can get some, you know, there's liability to not having these in place, obviously, because there are athletics going on right now. We have 6 sports running, and if somebody gets hurt and we don't have the proper personnel to look after them. So, and I did get an offer, I think, from one of the buildings today that we have someone on staff that's certified, that's willing to fill in at an hourly wage, which we don't have a provision to pay that, that in the contract. So I'll work with HR and figure out if we can. Okay.
We used to have trainers.
Yeah, they were in the contract before.
We just stopped doing it, though. That's right, we did though.
The next agenda item is policy review. This is looking a little bit more like student services when I look at this.
Yeah. We'll go through each and every one of these.
Yeah, so buckle up, here we go. No, let me explain, you don't need more water around the table. Everybody has to do it. So basically what happened is, through the board direction, we've contracted with the Illinois School Board Association to get our policies online. So what's going to happen, so we went through a total review with board member, Mr. Gracia was the board rep, and then you see who was part of it. We went through every single policy with Ken Carter from the Illinois School Board Association. And what basically is going to happen is, there's some minor changes. A lot of times it goes from the word to spell the word to, we've seen some of those. There has been some changes, and so everything is in front of you right now. So what will happen is, in a perfect world, in August, the board will accept the new board policy as is. And then it's automatically online, which is the greatest thing. So parents, committee members, board members, teachers, students, staff, whatever, it's going to be online, and they can search by a word, like athletics, math, curriculum, whatever. It'll pull up any policy immediately. Also, once the board has passed the policy at a board meeting, the next day, it's automatically online. Before, it had to go through a lot of hands. Lisa had to copy it, make it a red copy, and then it had to go through, it was Chris's copy. She had to get it, put it online. Carla had to make sure it went online, different places. We went through too many hands. Now we're paying this a little bit. It's not much money at all. We talked about it. It was like $1,500 or $1,000. It's ridiculous that we haven't been doing it, really. So it's going to be, ISB will kind of house it, not ISB, it's not at all. Illinois School Board Association, basically, but it's our policy. So when Packet 104 came out a couple months ago, it was 150 pages.
Yeah, hundreds of pages.
It's ridiculous, right? So then they help us through this whole process. It's going to be great, clean. Lisa, the last couple of years, has made it very clean. Actually, Lynn Sutter started, you guys remember, started the project. Lisa finished the project, but it's a beast. We are still part of press. We're on the exec board of press, so we do get the documents first. We give our opinions, and then it goes back to the Illinois School Board Association. Then it goes all 895 or 856 districts, and it's a 2-month process. So the process will continue after September, first reading, second reading, all that kind of stuff, but it'll be nice and clean. So once all that's done, now we're going through the APs and E's, because you can't do APs and administrative procedure and exhibits without the policy. So now we'll bring those to committees over the next couple of weeks and months, and there'll be chunks. There'll be good chunks of them. But I don't know if you guys probably didn't get a chance to go through it, but it's really well done. We had long meetings. Actually, Ken said our policy was our manual was in great condition. We didn't have a lot to do. We had probably 3-4 hour meetings like that, which is nothing for us. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Things were really clean, which was good to know. So that's just a process. It's, pretty excited about it. I don't know if you guys have any questions. We're all there for your enjoyment.
Yeah, I think the only changes the way in the back to the policy. Like on page 307, there's the red type. So I've been looking through it. I didn't know if there was any more.
You mean in John?
The whole document.
John's going to go through?
Hard to go compare the two.
Yeah, I mean, we went and compared everyone line by line to go through to get to where it was. And actually, we actually depended on quite a bit on Illinois School Board Association, policy lawyers, and our lawyers to make sure that it was up to date. I mean, because last thing I wanted to do, some of our policies were not touched for some years. didn't affect us, but they were some outdated ones. So some of these APs right now are gonna possibly change. And you see right here, gift ban, this is the new one John was covering, slip and fall. The whole time.
Yeah. So 4170, you know, we had the AP, but we've added a bunch on slip, trip, and fall prevention because our carrier has been asking for this for some time, and basically recently sent us something that said, are you going to add this to your policy, or are you not going to? And, you know, and they basically are going to use that as a reason to jack up our rates. So we said, we'll put it in our policy. So this is some addition here related to slip, trip, and fall. And honestly, while slip, trip, and fall is probably our highest, you know, accident, you know, I think that probably is for most companies that, you know, slip, trip, and fall is probably the most highest thing. It's not been that bad. And most, if not all of the accidents that we've had, you know, are accidents, and they weren't, you know, it wasn't like we have a hazard that 12 people have tripped over this bad step or, you know, this bad stair tread, and we've never fixed it. It's not like that. It's like, you know, you know, a pan in one of our cooling or one of our heating trays started leaking, you know, because it ate through the pan and it started dripping on the floor, and someone came in and slipped on the water before anyone was in, you know, in the morning. So, you know, how do you prevent that? You know, we have these conversations with our carrier, you know, and he goes through all these things that we can do, but it's very difficult to avoid every accident when you have, you know, 1,000 people walking around a building every day. You know, there's going to be accidents. So we do our best, and I think as we compare well to other districts, and we've got very, very good work comp rates compared to many of the other districts, and in fact, they haven't gone up for years. I think until recently, I think last year we had a little bit of an increase, and that was the industry had experienced a lot of loss. And, yeah, not necessarily ours. So that's what that is. There's one other.
Yeah, one that was handed out is, this came from H. Lurk, our attorneys, and this is because if we're in a remote, it allows the parents to say their student can go from home to the golf course. If they're, you know, golf, so they golf, tennis, they can get themselves to the sport, and just so parents are getting that exhibit that was just the attorneys are suggesting we just skip this. It's happened before, but this is moving over. We know kids have travel. And then, Sue, if you don't mind, one quick thing as far as we're going to keep the building finance, we use the building finance meeting travels. We're going to keep meetings here at district office while we're in the state. Right now, it's probably board meetings as well. They're going building to building with cleaning spaces and not knowing who is who, if we had a contact trace. It's just, we expect to keep the meetings at one space. If you guys have any problems with that.
No, I don't. Chris mentioned that to me when we were going over the agenda. I was going to share that as well. No, that's okay. Good reminder.
There's been some great projects done at the buildings. I wish you guys could see some of that stuff, but
yeah, we will.
Do we have photos?
I was going to ask, what if we have, Reese? Let's go with Reese and we do some projects.
Yeah, Reese did do a thing we're sharing with the board coming up, but yes.
good idea. That'd be awesome.
That would be great.
Yeah, almost just as good.
See how we spend our money and what those improvements, those investments look like.
I know, part of the thing that's nice about building finance, we go around and figure out cool stuff.
I'm sure.
So before we close up the meeting, does anybody have anything they would like to add before we close up the meeting?
This is Brian Sullivan again. Just one quick question back to the section that we were speaking about on adding trainers this year. And I just wanted to ensure, or I guess ask whether we did background checks of anyone that was coming across, or were we reliant upon, whatever policies are in place at ATI or Athletico or whoever we end up using?
No, we get background checks on everybody that comes into our buildings, including contractors.
Anyone, even if it's volunteers, anyone that comes into the building, even if they've been approved by their outside contract, goes through ours as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then we get the updates from the state, county sheriffs and the state, we get the updates. If there's an issue on somebody, we pray to God it's not.
Any other questions from tonight's meeting? All right, well, I guess then we will wrap this up. Our next meeting is Tuesday, September 15th at 7 p.m. We will be having it here at the Administration Center. And it'll be also like tonight where you'll have the opportunity to Zoom in, so we can keep our numbers down in person. We appreciate you logging in with us tonight, so thank you very much. We appreciate your input and your questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.